Today I'm going to talk about the 27 books that I read in 2025. I had a pretty decent year of reading. In 2023, it was probably my best reading year. Last year, I read a decent amount of good books. And then 2025, there's some gems in here, but there's also a lot of just okay books. I was reading a lot of free books that I got from free libraries, a lot of books that I just got from friends as they were like going through their libraries, and then a lot of books that I picked up at like half-price books. So it was a little bit more of me just reading what I had at hand rather than me specifically picking out the books that I really wanted to read. My ratings are weird. They don't really matter. They were feelings when I finished the books, and then there are feelings that I have now about the books, and they don't match up, and that's fine. We're just gonna rapid fire go through all the books that I read, and hopefully give you some inspiration on what you could read in 2026. The first book that I read in 2025 was The Bell Jar. I enjoyed this book, but it definitely wasn't what I was thinking it would be. I kind of guess I was thinking that it would be a bit more profound in a way, which maybe is an unfair criticism of this book. I don't know, it was just a book that I always heard about and wanted to read for the longest time, and then I read it and I was kind of like, oh, okay, this is what this book is about. I feel like there's a lot of similar books to this that are a bit more hard-hitting. The next book is The Song of Achilles. I don't think that I'm a good authority on this book because when I was in the 9th grade, I had to read the Odyssey, and we had to do this group project in front of our class, and basically my teacher was being really annoying and kept on stopping us, so I told her to shut up. So then she emailed my mom, and my mom got really mad at me, and this was the first time I've ever gotten in trouble at school for anything Greek mythology. I just think about 9th grade, and it makes me upset. That's why I didn't give this that high of stars. Does that make sense? Is that a crazy statement that I just said? Like I said, I'm not the authority on this book because none of that made any sense, and none of that was talking about this book. This book was good, and a lot of people really, really love it, so my opinion on this one does not matter. Next, we have Verity. Okay, I did not pay for this book. I got this book from a little free library, which would not pay money for any of this author's books. This is the only book that I've read by Colleen Hoover. This was terrible. It was awful. It was bad. I hated it. I was cringing every other page. Next up, we have Hellbent. This was such a disappointment. I absolutely loved Ninth House, which was the first book in this series, and then reading this one just was not it. I felt like it was a really weird tone shift. The story just went in a weird place that I wasn't liking or expecting. Whatever magic was in Ninth House that I absolutely loved, whatever was in that book was absolutely lacking in this book. And then we have I Who Have Never Known Men. I really enjoyed this book a lot. I kind of picked it up not super knowing what it was about and just picked it up on a whim because it was really popular this year, which is definitely how I recommend you to read it if you haven't heard of it yet. Literally just buy it, don't even read the back, and pick it up and just start reading it because it's just such a unique book and such a unique experience to read through. And next we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I just could not get myself to care about anything that was happening in this book. I could not get myself to care about these characters. I also did get this from a free library, I'm just not remembering that. For 300 years of history of this woman's life, it was very white centered and white European centered, and that's just not something that I'm interested in. I don't know, I saw somebody say something about this book that was it's crazy that this book covers 300 years but there's only one person of color in it, and I was like, ooh, that is crazy. And then next we have Cleopatra and Frankenstein. I loved this book. I flew through this in 2 days. I really loved the characters and the writing and this study of a relationship from beginning to end and how people change and what people go through. Really loved this, and I'm really looking forward to reading other books by this author because I'm hoping that they're the same caliber as this. But this is definitely one that I would recommend. Next is The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. There were a couple of stories in here that I really enjoyed, but then there was mixed with a couple of stories that just didn't really hit the way I was hoping. But I think this is a pretty good collection of short stories. And then we have A Little Life. I'm glad I read this book, but I also wish that I could go back in time and tell myself that I could skip this book, if that makes sense. it was just so talked about and so many people read it. So like I knew that I wanted to read it to like see what it was all about. But now having read it, I didn't need to read this book, and it's not my type of book to begin with. And it definitely also is like trauma porn. Like there's just so much like I don't like reading books where the characters are just like in misery 24/7 and it's awful and nothing ever gets better and it just gets more awful and more awful. And also the characters think that they deserve that. Like I just don't like that. Am I glad that I read it? I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. But I gave it how many stars? I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. But I don't like it now that I'm thinking about it. But I'm also not going to go back and change my review. Don't read this book. And then next is In the Lives of Puppets. This was pretty cute. I also got this one from a free library, so I just kind of picked it up on a whim. I'd seen this author a couple of times and was just kind of curious about what his books were about. And it's definitely not my typical read and not my typical genre, but I did still enjoy it. And I thought it was a cute book. But I also was kind of like going through this book really, really quickly to get to our next book, which is Sunrise on the Reaping. I love The Hunger Games. I've always loved The Hunger Games. Anything that Suzanne Collins puts out that's related to The Hunger Games or in the universe of The Hunger Games, I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna love it. Period. That's just in the fabric of my being. Specifically, The Sunrise on the Reaping. I mean, I don't think anything can touch the original series, but I definitely think I like this a little bit better than The Ballad of the Songbirds of the Snakes, just because I'm always gonna like the district stories, like, as opposed to the capital stories, because, like, in this day and age, with everything going on, I know how the capital is living. We know that. We get it shown to us all the time. I would rather see this perspective. Not saying that that's not a good perspective. I enjoyed this book, is what I will say, and I will always enjoy any Hunger Games related media. And next we have My Sister the Serial Killer. This was a really fun read. I really enjoyed this one. It's also one that I feel like is going to be a really easy like recommendation to give people. It's not super dark. It's not super gory or anything like that. It's just mainly more so a funny, quick, and witty like observation of a sister dynamic that's a little bit strange, obviously. But yeah, it's definitely a book that I am going to recommend to a lot of people. And next up is My Best Friend's Exorcism. With Grady Hendrix, I always know that I'm in for a pretty decent time. I know I'm not in for a 5-star time, but I know I'm usually in for like a 3.5, 4-star time, which is what I was looking for, and it's definitely what I got from this one. It's definitely not my favorite by him. The main character was kind of making me angry most of the time, but it was still enjoyable, and like I said, I know what I'm getting with Grady Hendrix, so a lot of the times it's just like knowing that I'll get a decent spooky book is what I'm going for, and that's what I got. Next is The Midnight Library. This was definitely an enjoyable read. I almost cried during this book. I was tearing up, but I didn't actually cry, so I feel like that docks it a couple of points. It's one that gets you thinking about your own life and stuff, and one that I definitely would recommend to a lot of people. I do also know that there's a lot of people who really don't like this book, but me personally, I'm just gonna remember the things that I like about it and go from there, and I don't know, I think it's a solid read. And then next up we have Writers and Lovers. It was enjoyable. It's just, kind of a portrait of a writer, and I'm not a writer, so that's maybe why I kind of didn't give it the best of review, just because I didn't really relate to this character in that sense, but definitely did relate to this character in the sense of like not knowing what's going on or what you're doing. So I don't know. It was enjoyable. Next, we have Conversations with Friends. I absolutely love this book. I gave it 5 stars. Sally Rooney, whatever is wrong with you is also what's wrong with me. I always feel so seen and heard, and like, I don't know, there's just so many, I have so many like dog-eared pages of like quotes that like something the character was thinking, and I was like, I have had that same terrible thought all the time. So I always will love a Sally Rooney book. In 2023, I read Normal People. Last year, I read Beautiful World, Where Are You? And then this year was Conversation with Friends. In 2026, I'm going to pick up Intermezzo. And then in 2027, I don't know what I'm going to read. So, Sally Rooney, I need you to hook me up. No pressure, though. because writing takes time, but also I will read literally anything you write. And then next up, we have 2 books, which is Good Girl, Bad Blood and As Good as Dead. I did enjoy this series overall, and it's one that I would recommend. It is young adult, so it's definitely very young adult vibes going on, but it's still really enjoyable and a quick and easy read. I would say that I definitely enjoyed Good Girl, Bad Blood a lot more. I think this was my favorite out of the series, which is weird because it's the second book. As Good as Dead was kind of a really dark tone shift, I felt, and I just didn't fully love how the story panned out and how much the main character was like, I don't know, I just didn't really like the tone of this one, I guess I would say. But overall, I think it's a really good series, and a really fun read. So there's those. And then I read Gone Girl. This is one that I had seen the movie, like, bits and pieces, but never seen it all the way through. So I was like, I want to watch the movie all the way through. But if I want to watch the movie all the way through, then I should read the book first, because I am a legit person who reads the book first. It was definitely enjoyable. I mean, I think a lot of people know this author and know the caliber of work that she puts out. So I really enjoyed this. And then I also really enjoyed the movie. Next up is You Like It Darker. I got this one from a free library, which is always a win. It's my only Stephen King of the year, and it's a collection of short stories. There were a few that I was okay with, and then there were a few that I really liked. There's 2 in particular that, like, I still think about a lot. Like, they just both pop in my head all the time. I know that there's a lot of really valid criticisms of Stephen King and of Stephen King's writing out there, and I hear them fully. But I'm still also always going to read Stephen King and love Stephen King at the same time. So, I don't know. It's such a core part of my reading is Stephen King, so, like, I can't not. Then we have Rouge. This is the same author that wrote Bunny, which was a 5-star read for me, and I absolutely loved it. This is not a 5-star read, and I did not like this book, unfortunately. I mean, I thought this premise was really good, and I enjoyed parts of the book, but I also felt like at times it was, like, too abstract and then too descriptive, but descriptive of the wrong stuff. But then also it kind of mimics, like, the mental state that the main character's in, I feel like. I don't know. It just wasn't what I was hoping it was, and it was definitely a departure from Bunny. I would recommend Bunny 1,000 times. I would really recommend this one. And then we have Such a Fun Age. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it wrapped up these characters in this story, like, so perfectly, and every character got, like, exactly what they deserved. Next is If We Were Villains. This is another book that I got from a friend, so I would not have read this book unless somebody gave it to me. I absolutely loved this book. It was so good. It just surrounds college students and their theater group that, like, does Shakespeare's plays, and I will say I also don't like Shakespeare, but I really, really liked this, and I never was, like, felt like it was super pretentious with its Shakespeare additives. I don't know. This was really surprising how much I enjoyed this, and it's definitely one that I would for sure recommend to a lot of people. Next up, we have Mexican Gothic. I saw this book all the time at Half Price Books, which is sometimes an indicator that a book isn't that great, because if a lot of people are getting rid of it and it's newer. It was okay. I enjoyed the storyline, but also was kind of bored at times. I don't know, it just didn't fully captivate me at any point in time, which is upsetting. And then we have The Book Thief. This is definitely a book that most people have already read, and if they did read it, they read it in, like, middle school. I wish I would have read at the age that it's targeted at, but it was still enjoyable, and I really loved the, like, unique perspective of death and how this story, like, weaves together with all of that. And then we have the only novella that I read this year, which is Graveyard Shift. Criticism that I have for it is it wasn't longer. I feel like the story could have been a longer book, and I would have really enjoyed it, but I still did really enjoy it in this state. And then we have the last book that I read in 2025, which is Oye. And it was definitely really cute. I enjoyed this story, and I enjoyed the characters a lot. The only thing that kind of tripped me up was just the format. It's told in, like, phone calls that a sister receives from her sister, but it's only the one side, so you only hear the main character talking and you don't ever hear her sister responding. The format kind of tripped me up in a couple of places, which I felt kind of took away from the story. But overall, it was a really enjoyable read, and I really, like, got to love the characters in this book, so It's one that I would recommend, just with the caveat that it's like kind of trips you up if you're not super paying attention to it. And that's all the books that I read in 2025. It's a decently solid year of reading. I have higher hopes for next year for sure. Always hoping to read better stuff. But I mean, there definitely were some gems in here, and maybe books that I wouldn't have loved and didn't love, but other people will. I'm not a very good reviewer, as you can tell, of books, but I still wanted to do this just to recap the year. I hope you guys have a good reading year in 2026, and I'm excited for what I get to read, and hopefully things get better in general. So, we'll see. Okay, thanks. Bye.